Regarding Men, Episode 27, The Decline of Feminism and the Manspreading Chair.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another discussion on Regarding Men. I'm Paul Elam with a Voice for Men, and I am joined as always by two compadres, Tom Golden from menaregood.com. Hey, Tom. And the one and only Janice Fiamingo, formerly of the University of Ottawa, and now she's been turned loose on the world at large. Layla Laurel. Now, no, that's not a pair of topless dancers. That is the name of an artist who has created a chair, an anti-manspreading chair that's been in the news recently. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. The chair, I'm sure, is designed to make a social statement about us evil men who go onto subways and other forms of public transportation and have the audacity to make room for our balls when we sit down, which is basically what all this boils down to. I mean, if you look honestly in the mechanics of the way men sit physiologically, it makes sense that our legs are apart. And of course, like most men out there in this world, I sit down that way. And then when somebody comes and needs the seat next to me, then I move my legs closer together, even if it's a little uncomfortable, to make room for them, because that's the polite thing to do. And that is what 99.9% of all men do.
Yes.
There's going to be a few rude ones out there. And of course, there are no shortage of women out there with their purses sitting next to them in chairs. But of course, that's a taboo. We can't talk about that. But we're also pairing up this topic about the manspreading chair / piece of art, or whatever you want to call it, with the idea that we now know that feminism is becoming even less popular than it was before. Feminism is losing popularity. And I think these two subjects fit together quite well. You have somebody who's making, apparently it took this woman a year to make this really, really bad chair. I mean, and she's beaming in the pictures of her with it. Laurel is just beaming with pride about her really, really poorly designed chair. And it's a chair that I think is designed to punish men, to inflict pain on them. That's the intent of this. It is not to point out the social evil of manspreading. I mean, ostensibly that's the goal. But the real goal here, as we see with all feminist projects, is to hurt men, to punish them.
Yes.
And she's made a chair that quite easily does that. What do you think, Janice?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think, the overall goal of so many of these campaigns, and that's the scary thing about the manspreading chair, is that actually manspreading has been taken very seriously by public officials and members of the culture at large. There was a campaign on the New York subway system. I can't remember now exactly when, a couple of years ago, with posters. They spent apparently $60,000+ to have a campaign saying, "Dude, stop the spread." And there were pictures of men sitting improperly, and men were being hectored, to learn to comport themselves differently on the subway. The Toronto subway also had a serious campaign to stop manspreading, so it is a part of the project to make men less comfortable in their own skins. And that derives from a very long history in feminist theory that tries to claim that our culture has done that to women, denying that there might be any kind of, psychobiological reasons why women behave in public differently from how men behave. Many feminist theorists, there's one in particular named Sandra Lee Bartkey, who has written a whole book on this subject about how women are disciplined by the culture at large, not by any one person or institution forcing them to do certain things, but simply by the culture in general, which according to her, makes women comport themselves differently in all sorts of ways, ranging from the fact that women smile more often than men do, to the fact that they stand differently, that they hold their bodies differently, that they move in different ways, that they spend a lot of time, putting on makeup and all of these things. All of these are part of a disciplining of the body that she sees as a kind of invisible form of oppression that women need to throw off. And part of the way they want to do that, of course, is to make men take up the feminine position. And that's exactly what these chairs are all about. It's not only about encouraging women to feel freer in public spaces, but it's about making men feel less free and making men feel as if they are the ones who are subject to the gaze of society. They are the ones who need to make themselves smaller and put their knees together and act in a submissive way. And it is all about submission and the idea that men have been far too happy in themselves as physical beings and need to be made less so. And that's yeah, it's got a very long tradition in feminist theory. So Layla Laurel is doing what she's been trained by decades of feminist indoctrination to do.
Huh. Yeah, it's amazing how the feminists basically turn the mundane into victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, really, when you look at it. I mean, they just take everyday simple crap that probably has a biological explanation. They just turn it into something where it's a terrible a part of patriarchy. It's just, it's, when you look at it, you gotta laugh. I mean, it's just crazy. It's nutty stuff. But I think everybody has the right to do something dumb every now and then, including this Layla person. I mean, she's got the right to do something dumb, and I hope I have that right too, because I've done that plenty of times. But what I don't think we have a right to do is give people rewards for doing something dumb. I mean, that goes beyond the beyond. I mean, that's crazy. And I think this woman's, her chair, she talks about it being tongue in cheek,
Mm-hmm.
but in the same breath, she says, "Oh, but men do spread in public far too much. So this is calling attention to a problem that's there, even though it's, quote, tongue in cheek." Yeah, give me a break. I don't believe that for a second. So here we've got someone doing something dumb, but we've got someone even dumber who's given her a award for it. Sad, eh?
Yeah, I hope at some point we'll put up pictures of these chairs that she's designed.
Oh, we will.
And it's certainly a good thing for feminists that we're all allowed to do some stupid things in life, because their whole ideology seems to operate on it. One of the things that gets sort of maybe is a benefit in this, in terms of bringing it up for the discussion, there is a reason that men's testicles are on the outside of their body. It has to do with temperature and cooling.
Heat, yeah.
Yes, it is to keep them from overheating.
Right.
And it's the same reason that men tend to sit with their legs apart. Again, it's to keep the testicles from overheating.
Yes.
This is a physiological necessity for men. And of course, feminists don't look at science. Everything to them is social. And so they construct what amounts to an Iron Maiden for a man's and call it a positive statement about society. And you look at the other chair, she devised a chair for women too. And I found it fascinating that the way the woman's chair is designed is for her legs to be parted
and spread.
And spread.
And which, that's just fine, Paul.
The cigar puffing patriarch in me says, right, sexually available. That's the way women ought to be. Give them all these chairs. I want those chairs installed on all the subways.
Only for women.
But it is, I mean, it makes me think, I agree, Tom, we got to have the latitude to do stupid things.
Yeah.
But come on, this is like intentionally stupid.
Yeah.
Like
and there's an element of hatefulness to it too.
There's an element of hatefulness to it. Yeah. And I wonder what she was thinking when she was deciding to design a chair that forced a woman to part her legs in public? I just wonder what's going through her mind.
She was getting those men back, Paul. She was getting them back for all of the thousands of years that they'd been able to spread their legs whenever they wanted to.
I suppose in the 2 and 2 equals 5 world of feminist logic, that's
We'll get you back.
exactly what she was thinking.
We'll spread whatever we want. I mean, it's silly. It's crazy. And, you know, the whole mechanism of the testicles is fascinating. Yeah. And every guy knows this to be true. You know, when you jump into cold water in a swimming pool, what happens? You know, automatically the testicles pull up into the body. They almost disappear, you know, if it gets really cold. And then when it gets hot, they release. They go back down. Women probably don't know this, Paul. They don't realize that. And usually a car like that is pretty warm. You know,
well,
so
if I were designing a chair that had to do with the sex of the person sitting in it, I would think physiology would be one of the first areas I would start considering in the design of that chair. But of course, again, this is not about anything scientific.
No, it's not. And that chair is not designed for comfort. You can.
And this woman is getting lauded all over the place for this work as though she's actually accomplished something that wasn't stupid.
And why is that, Paul? Why are people applauding her?
Same reason we come to every time we have one of these discussions is because, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, it is the way it is, but this society has become so gynocentric that every time a woman can tie her shoes, there's a group of feminists to stand around and clap and to assert that she did it in spite of years of oppression.
Exactly.
That she could tie her shoes just as well as a man can, and you good girl, and I mean, they're serious.
And what happens when the man ties his shoes, Paul?
Oh, that knot is a symbol of bondage.
That's right. He's a patriarch.
Yeah, don't believe the bow tie. It's really a double knot.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And what this says to me more than anything else is the relative ease of women's lives. If you have to search this hard for a source of this, I mean, Janice mentioned invisible oppression, which is the only kind of oppression that I ever hear feminists talking about is the invisible kind, because nobody can see it. Yeah. And so they have to fabricate these oppressions. Because, I mean, and I don't know, I think certainly there is still parts of the world where there is genuine oppression of women. I believe that actually happens. But in those cultures, the men are just as oppressed or more.
Exactly.
But in this culture, in Western culture, where somebody can spend a year making a shitty chair to make a stupid point, that's your social movement? That's your idea of seeking justice in the world? Man, how good could you possibly have it to occupy a year of your life with something so inane?
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. And this perhaps ties in very nicely with the other subject that we wanted to discuss, which was that survey that I think is an older survey, a couple of years old at least, maybe even 3 years old, but that has been in the news quite a bit lately about attitudes towards feminism amongst the young in particular, and certain groups sounding the alarm that this indicates a kind of rightward trend in society as a whole, that many young people are rejecting feminism. And certainly, you know, one could say, well, perhaps it's projects like Layla's that do cause the rejection of feminism as too extreme, which was one of the reasons offered by people for not identifying as feminists. But at the same time, that survey also gave a lot of answers to questions about which sex has the most difficult time of it, and is there still a pay gap? Is it true that men on average are paid more for doing the same work? And I thought the answers to those questions were pretty startling.
Yes.
And seem to indicate that although, yes, it's true that many people are not identifying as feminists, that we still live in a feminist culture that believes that women have a very, very tough time of it. I mean, I think one of the questions was, who is treated better? Men themselves answered that men are treated better. 37% of men thought men were treated better than women, and 57% of women thought men were treated better. And then on the question of who has it harder, almost half of all men thought it was harder to be a woman. Interestingly enough, fewer women thought that. Only 42% of women thought it was harder to be a woman than to be a man. But a whopping 58% of men believe that there is a pay gap, that men are paid more for the same work, and 77% of women believe that men are paid more for the same job. That is startling. And so in many ways, the sounding of alarm on the left and the jubilation on the other side about the number of people refusing to identify as feminists doesn't really provide me with any comfort, because here we've got, a society that has been so deeply influenced by feminist theories that, it agrees with most of the feminist postulates anyway, even if many members don't identify as feminists. So I'm not sure that there's much of a victory or much cause for satisfaction in that poll. In fact, I found it quite depressing.
Well, and actually, those numbers, Janice, for me, are fairly encouraging, because I think in 10 years ago, they would have even been more lopsided
Could be.
now. But you're right. Only, I think, 17 to 20% of the female population identify as feminists. But what does it matter when everybody abides by feminist ideology?
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things they left out of the wage gap equation, and of course, when you factor away for experience, time on the job, and number of hours worked, and what the profession is, importantly, the wage gap disappears. But in some studies, there is still this slight edge for men, very slight, 1 or 2% wage gap. And some feminist ideologues will point at that and see there, even when you factor away everything, men still make more than money. There's another answer to that question. When you say, why do men make more money? The answer is because they have to. The onus has always been on men, and this has not changed. 50 years of feminism has not changed the fact that in most relationships, the onus is on the man to be the breadwinner, that her money is her money and his money is their money. Yeah. And a man who doesn't earn sleeps alone. And not so for women. Women can work part-time, not at all, full-time, overtime, whatever, and it doesn't have any impact whatsoever on their sexual possibilities. For men, it has a drastic impact. They must earn. And so it would seem to me that part of that would be responsible for explaining what tiny wage gap there actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was fascinated by the study, or by the what would you call it, a survey showing that tiny percentage of women call themselves feminists, but a huge percentage of women and men believed in gender equality. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, what the hell's going on with that? And what I came up with is that they're probably afraid to tell the feminists that they're wrong. It's kind of like, the female in-group bias, where you do not want to be an outlier. You don't want to be someone who calls out the people because you don't want to call attention to yourself. But also, I think it has to do with bullying, because I think most people see that feminists are bullies. They're really bullies. And who wants to call out the bully? If you call out the bully, you're putting yourself in jeopardy. I think that's another reason that they're not going to say anything about feminism, because they're afraid. Just like men should be afraid of these people. mean, they literally are bullies, and they have the gynocentric power to hurt you, you know? Anyway, what an interesting survey that was.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not discount Elam's laws on governing the behavior of men and women.
Uh-oh.
That if there's a perceived advantage for women, men and women support it. If it's a perceived advantage for men, men and women will dissent from it.
Ignore it.
It doesn't really matter even what the reality is, whether it could be hurting women, and men and women will support it if they perceive that it's giving them an edge.
Right.
And so which is all just a sort of a complicated way to say gynocentrism.
Yes, exactly. It's just one more manifestation of gynocentrism, which it's like everybody's got gynocentric underpants on. It's like they don't even know they're there, but
right.
Man,
yeah,
the whole world is based on it.
And this may well be the great success of feminism, that it keeps on advancing its agenda, playing on the deep gynocentrism that is there in the society. And it doesn't matter how people identify or even how they perceive feminism as a movement.
Exactly.
They've still accepted all of feminist tenets and feminist arguments, that women are the ones whose suffering matters, that women have a hard time of it, that women need to be encouraged and applauded, that more needs to be done for women, that men's suffering doesn't matter, that men have had it too good for too long, that if men don't have it good now, that doesn't really matter, that won't hurt society. All of that under the name of equality. Talk about a successful movement. And, according to E. Belfort Bax, who I've been reading extensively the last couple of days, it's been thus for at least a century, if not longer.
Yes.
I mean, it's only, he probably wouldn't be surprised to see how things have advanced in the 100 years since he wrote The Fraud of Feminism. But, he made the point too, exactly your law, Paul, that men vie with one another to support laws and policies and social structures that advantage women and disadvantage men themselves.
That's the patriarchy.
Yeah, that's the patriarchy. Yeah.
And I hate to feed into bad stereotypes, but when people say men are stupid, stupid is as stupid does.
Oh, God. Well, they're juiced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all those exclamations of alarm about how this indicated, a serious trend as young people are turning away from feminism. How could we be any more pro-feminist in our culture?
No one will call them out. Nobody.
No, and for good reason now too. For good reason. It's far too dangerous, as you said, Tom.
Yeah.
Unless you're looking for personal destruction.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, death by feminism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm. And there is some good news about all this, though. And that is that a Reddit user developed a chair in response to this woman's chair, and he called it the bag spreading chair. And we'll show you a picture of that. And you can see that, it's built so that women can't put their bags on anything. They'll have to hold on to them. So I thought it was a clever response. And like men are very funny. Men oftentimes will use their humor to respond to situations like that. So bless this guy, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bag spreading chair.
The what?
I love it.
Yeah.
The anti-bag spreading, yes.
Anti-bag spreading, that's right.
And I also would like to give a shout out to all of those people who, when the anti-manspreading campaign was at its height a number of years ago, and we saw all these pictures and articles, about men on the subway and everything, that many men also posted pictures of women doing their own forms of spreading with their shopping bags everywhere, piled all around them, or taking up space in an inordinate amount of space in various ways.
But they have a choice, Janice.
Yeah. I know, they're just protecting themselves. Yeah.
Yes, it's the male beauty standard forces them to do all that shopping.
Yeah.
So it's our fault too.
It's always the man's fault.
That's it.
Because God knows women can't look at a magazine without running to the bathroom and sticking their fingers down their throat.
Yeah. 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 So maybe we should give out our awards then.
I think it's time. I think it's time.
So the Flying Puta first goes to
lovely
Layla and Laurel. Oh no, excuse me, Layla Laurel.
Layla Laurel. Yeah. For that year she spent pondering the ways that men and women take up space and thinking of how she could strike a blow against the patriarchy by making men deeply uncomfortable in her chair. Good for you.
And for that smug look on her face as people are actually just fawning over her stupid chair, and her look like, look, I accomplished something. It should be worth the Nobel Prize. If they had a Nobel Prize for stupid chairs, she would get it.
I should be riding the Puta in no time.
Yes.
Indeed. Oh, there she goes.
There she went. Bye-bye, Laurel.
Oh, me. And who gets the humanitarian?
Well, we want to give it to our anonymous fellow. Well, we don't know, I guess, that it was a man, but we think it likely was.
Pretty good guess. It's a guy.
Yeah. Oh, I would almost bet on that. It's a guy. Yes. So the designer of the anti-bag spreading chair. Humanitarian award.
Good for him.
Thank you for standing up for what's right.
Yes.
There you go.
Doing it with humor.
Yeah, for seeing the ludicrousness of what passes for profound social commentary in our society.
Indeed. Yeah. Well said. So are we finished?
Well, I want to add one other thing to this. I want to remind everybody why it's important to subscribe to the Regarding Men newsletter. I'm going to do it with an example right now. For 3.5 years, I think, I was getting anywhere from several hundred to up to a couple of thousand new subscribers a month on YouTube. Suddenly, about 8 weeks ago, all that stopped. And now in the past 30 days, I've lost nearly 500 subscribers. They are just disappearing. YouTube is choking off my subscriber base, and they are unsubscribing people. So one, if you think you're subscribed to my channel, you might want to check and see if you really are. But the censorship on social media platforms continues. They are going after us, and I'm sure at some point the plug will be pulled. I am on BitChute, and I'm including that on the links below. But if you sign up for the Regarding Men newsletter, you get notifications of the videos. It's just like having a subscription, only the notification process is a lot better. And the other way to get them is to run over Tom's channel. We'll be hosting the videos. Subscribe to Men Are Good on YouTube. Go over there and give Tom a subscribe. You'll see all these videos and all his other good stuff.
Thank you, Paul. So on that happy note,
men
are good, as are you.
Well, you were supposed to say "are," and Janice could have said "good," but
let's try it again. Go again, Paul.
You're oppressive, Tom. Nope. Men
are
good,
as are you.
On that note, you all take care. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.